your body isn't broken, it's communicating. Yeah. And when you learn to decode what it's telling you, you can realign the body and reclaim that energy, that focus, that vitality that you're missing.
Welcome to Talkin' Shit, the podcast where we get real about the unfiltered truths women face in the quest for perfection. I'm Jana, your host, a dietitian and fellow woman navigating the pressure to have it all together, the perfect body, career, relationships, and making it all look effortless. Who set that standard anyway? Here, we're calling out the diet fads, hustle culture, beauty standards, and everything else that keeps us feeling stuck. But we're not just venting, we're diving into how to break free and rewrite the rules on your terms. So grab a coffee or a glass of wine and let's talk some shit. Together, we'll uncover how to live a life that's unapologetically yours. This is Talkin' Shit. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to the Talkin' Shit podcast. I am very excited for today's show because we're going to talk about a really hot topic, I would say, and a hot topic that, and actually no pun intended with that one, but one that many women have been wanting to have conversations around because for the first time they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And oh my gosh, I'm not crazy for feeling this way. So Claudine, I'm so excited that you are here and we're going to share a lot of information with our listeners. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to those that are tuning in?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here as well. So I am Claudine Francois. I'm a board certified functional health practitioner and, believe it or not, a former CFO. So I have a history there, but I help high achieving women decode what their bodies are trying to tell them so that they can finally get their energy, focus, and feel like themselves again, right? Their vitality. Everything I do is essentially about teaching women that their bodies aren't broken, which many of them think. Right? Their bodies are actually communicating by giving them these signals, which we see as symptoms, right? Those are signals or clues. And women just need the right key to understanding what those signals are saying. And that's what I explain in my new book.
Ready to lose weight, feel in control around food, and build a lifestyle that actually lasts? The Healthy Body Collective is my monthly coaching community where you get expert guidance from me, Jana, live coaching, real accountability, and a supportive group of women who actually get it. You can click the link in the show notes to join now. See you inside. Yeah, so before we started recording, we talked about this idea of the disconnect between women and their bodies. So when you say a disconnect between women and their bodies, what do you mean by that?
Well, I feel it's very similar to something that you've talked about before, which is like many women, we just weren't taught how our body really works, right? We've been stuck in this cycle of just listening to whoever's talking loudest, telling us to eat this or not eat that, or do this workout or don't do that workout. And so kind of to tack on to that, we weren't taught how our bodies work. We especially weren't taught how our bodies work after 40. Like forget what you knew for the first 40 years of your life, it kind of goes all out the window. And so when you have these midlife symptoms like fatigue, brain fog, stubborn weight, insomnia, they aren't random, right? They're data. So I told you I'm from an accounting background. I love seeing things as data. And that's kind of how I approach this midlife scenario is that the information our body is giving us is data. And conventional medicine, it treats these symptoms separately. Like it's really siloed, right? If you think about it, you have a heart issue, you go to a cardiologist. If you have a thyroid issue, you go to an endocrinologist. If you have this gut issue, you go to, you have a different person for each thing. But in functional medicine, we look at the whole picture. So we're looking at how do minerals, hormones, your gut, your nervous system, how do they all work together? And when you connect the dots, it really helps you move from what I call from frustration to freedom. So it's really about your body isn't broken, it's communicating. Yeah. And when you learn to decode what it's telling you, you can realign the body and reclaim that energy, that focus, that vitality that you're missing.
Okay, so this sounds so good, right? Like moving from frustration to freedom. And it's like, and how the heck do we do that, right? So many women will share with me like, and this is a pet peeve of mine, they'll be like, oh, I'm fine. And like, I always get more curious when someone says either I'm fine or I'm okay, because really there's more behind those words. But a lot of times, many women share with me that they didn't know how bad they felt until they started feeling better.
Mm.
For that woman who's like, yeah, well, maybe I'm not like feeling my greatest, but everything's fine. What are some like symptoms or what are some things that women should really be tuning into for their body that are not normal and should be really looked at to be able to support them in achieving their like highest health possible?
Some of the things, so I just turned 50 this year. So I have a lot of friends in this age range, right? And it's like 40s, 45, 50s, 60s, like we all start having these quote unquote symptoms, right? That we just think are normal, like you said. And some of the things I hear from them are, and they won't tell you this at first, right? It's just like, oh, I just wake up at 3 every day, every night. I just wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't go back to sleep and it's fine. And, whatever. I'm just getting older. I guess that's a thing now. And I'm like, that is not a thing.
Not a thing. Ooh.
It's not a thing.
Okay, we're gonna need to talk about that. Okay, what else is not a thing that they like should just be mindful of?
And I'm gonna tell you some of the odd things because, of course, most of us are familiar with like the fatigue or maybe the hot flashes or the stubborn weight. But I'll have women tell me, every joint hurts. All my joints hurt. Or I have this frozen shoulder. I'm doing my shoulder because a lot of women will talk about frozen shoulder. Or, I'll have like, I just had my gallbladder removed, or, or they just decided to take out my uterus because, I had this endometriosis forever and they wanted to get rid of it. There are so many they're not little, but so many things like that women just think, oh, well, that's what the doctor said. All of a sudden I have all these food intolerances. What's that all about? But they don't really think about it. I can't eat this anymore. I can't drink that anymore. It's just kind of this litany of symptoms or signals that the body is giving us that something is wrong that many of us just brush under the rug because we think, well, I'm just getting older. Isn't that how it is? Like, of course I'm supposed to be exhausted every day.
Yeah. And it is difficult because I like to make the distinction between feeling tired and being exhausted. There is a big difference between the two. It's very normal to be tired after a long day of doing all the things, right? It's normal for your body to feel tired and be like, okay, I'm going to get some rest. It is not normal for your body to constantly feel exhausted and like it can't keep up and like it's constantly running on empty. That's not normal. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I would say that many of the women who come to me, by the time they get to me, they are running on empty because I can see it in their lab work. Mm-hmm. They literally have nothing in the tank. And no wonder they're just trying to push themselves through every day. No wonder they're falling dead asleep or maybe not sleeping and then waking up at 3 a.m. and not be, their body is trying to compensate as much as it can, but it can only do so much with the raw materials it's given.
What are some of so you mentioned like the fatigue. It sounds like that's a big one. The night sweats, that's also a big one. Is this for perimenopause and menopause, or how do you really, I know like with menopause, it's 1 year without having a period, but outside of that factor, how do we really distinguish the different phases? And then we also have postmenopause, which a lot of women have said like, yeah, the conversation is around perimenopause and menopause, but what about after? Like, what does that mean for me? So can you help us like break down those phases?
Yes. And the part of the problem is there isn't actually a test to tell you if you're in perimenopause. Mm-hmm. And even though some doctors will use certain lab markers to say, oh, you're in perimenopause because this marker is high, it isn't actually accurate. What most women notice, the first thing they tend to notice is that their periods become irregular. So for women who had a regular cycle, whether it's 28 days, 35 days, whatever, all of a sudden it's not regular and they're skipping or, starting early or they're bleeding longer. Like that's usually the first thing that makes them think, what's happening here? Something's changed. Mm-hmm. But when you have really any of the symptoms that I've mentioned, or even ones that I haven't mentioned, where you're just all of a sudden, you've noticed a change in your body. The doctors aren't explaining it. They're just telling you, that's normal, or, oh, you're getting older, or, yeah, I mean, I've heard all the things. Oh, I'll just put you on a statin, or we'll just take out your uterus, or let's just put you on birth control, even though you're 50 and you're not having any kids. You get any of these symptoms where you're asking somebody about it and they just don't feel like they're connected. That's when you start to wonder, is it perimenopause? And really, the average age of perimenopause stage 1 is from age 35 to 45. So that's why when you have a baby at age 36, they tell you it's a quote unquote geriatric pregnancy because you're already in perimenopause, theoretically, right? Because again, that's an average for people.
Yeah.
And then perimenopause stage 2, which is when most women start to notice these symptoms, is 45 to 55.
Okay.
So that's why the women I see, they tend to fit into those time frames. And so that's when they're starting to notice all these things that are changing, even though what they've done for their bodies for the last 20 years isn't changing. The outcomes are different.
Yeah. So maybe that's when like you feel like you're doing all the things and you're not getting the same results, or that's where like you're doing all the things and it's super hard to maintain a healthy weight, or you're noticing weight gain. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's super frustrating. What would you say is like, so for a woman that's experiencing this though, and maybe kind of like pushing off like, oh, this is fine, or like, oh, basically I got to keep doing life, right? Like life doesn't stop. What do you feel like is keeping them stuck from actually getting the support that they need?
Well, you probably see this in your practice. The first thing that I notice is that many of the women I work with are not eating, right? They're not eating enough. They're not eating often enough. They're not getting in, they're not getting what I would consider the basic level of nutrients, whether that's protein, whether that's minerals. And so their body's depleted. You cannot drive a gas-powered car without gas.
Yeah.
Right? You can't drive an electric car if the battery isn't charged. Whatever analogy you want to use, you have to give your body what I call the raw materials to do its job. So underfueling and even overperforming, because the women I work with, they're high achieving. They're just going to keep pushing. They're like, this is supposed to work. I know how it's supposed to work. I'm going to just go to all the HIIT workouts. I'm going to do my CrossFit. I'm going to reduce my calorie load until this quote unquote gets fixed. And so that's usually the first thing that we address, because as you know, I've heard you talk about this, you need steady blood sugar throughout the day to maintain energy.
Yeah.
Right. And you need the nutrients to maintain all of your body's functions, because, if you just think about vitamins and minerals, you have to have vitamins and minerals to do certain functions in the body.
Right.
Right. Like your thyroid, your body can't even make thyroid without selenium and iodine. Never mind whether it gets in the cells because you have enough sodium, potassium, or maybe you have a calcium shell, like all these things that can either help or prevent that from getting in the cell. So yeah, that's like the first thing we look at. So it's the underfueling, overperforming, making sure they're getting enough nutrients and getting enough minerals. The other thing is nervous system support. So when we age and our estrogen drops, estrogen's like our cortisol buffer, right? So if your cortisol buffer is taking a hike, everything seems more stressful. And at the same time, progesterone's also dropping. Progesterone's our calming hormone. So not only do you not have your buffer, you don't have the guy that comes in and like gives you a hug when things are tough. So it's like, forget about it. You really need to, this is when I feel like, and maybe this is why I have friends who said, when I turned 40, I just stopped caring about other people and I had to refocus on myself, because your body's really telling you it's time to refocus on yourself. You literally cannot move forward if you do not take care of yourself. And it's kind of sad that it kind of hits us over the head with a mallet to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
But it is forcing us to have those moments where we support our nervous system. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like taking deep breaths. I mean, like taking a walk in nature, having a dance party if you need it, finding a way for you to release stress. For me, it was yoga. For somebody else, could be boxing. Like it could be taking it out on that boxing bag, punching bag. So whatever it is for you that you need to do to support your nervous system, that is super key, because when your nervous system is activated, all the other body systems stop. Right. So if you think about like the typical stress response, you're running away from the tiger. You do not need digestion if all of your systems are sending the energy to your muscles to go run away from the tiger, right? You don't need hormone production. You don't need thyroid production. So no metabolism. Your brain doesn't need to be at high alert, or well, it is on high alert, but it doesn't need to be cognitive function, because literally you're just trying to get away from something.
Right.
So calming our nervous system is really key to allowing our body to do the functions it needs to do, because all of the symptoms we're noticing are a byproduct of our body not being able to do the things it needs to do.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of other things, but those are kind of the main ones that we start with, because those are super key to helping someone get back on the road to health.
Yeah. And I really do want to, of course, I would die on the hill of saying you need to fuel your body. And I've said that, just with the women that come in, so many women don't start eating something of substance until like 1, 2, 3 o'clock, and are essentially starving their body, but also they're keeping their nervous system in that stress response. Because if you're not fueling your body, there's no way for it to truly calm down. Think about one way that I think about this is with like infants or smart children. When they are hungry, what starts happening to them for them to get food? It's like wild, right? And they make it known, I'm hungry. Well, the same thing is happening in the adult body. We just have better ways of avoiding it, I think, right? Like we can stay busy, we can distract ourselves or whatnot, but your body is still in that tantrum response when you have not had food. And when there's so many changes, when we can get that frequency of meal intake, and when we can get a lot of really high quality nutrients. And I say nutrients, not calories, right? Like we want the nutrients into the body. It's amazing what it can do. But that's very counterintuitive, particularly if the woman has struggled with weight her whole life and or is currently struggling with weight and she wants to lose weight. To say you need to eat more is very counterintuitive. So how do you navigate that with someone? So let me say, like, is that what you're saying? Like they need to eat more in order to really help their bodies during this time?
Usually, yes.
Usually. Mm-hmm.
Usually, yeah. For the most part, like I said, most of the women who come to me, they are underfueling. And the thing that I love about what I am doing now with the functional medicine is that I can show them in the lab results what their lifestyle is doing to their bodies, right? So I can show them their body's stress response. I can show them how well or not well their hormones are performing, how well their gut is performing, how it's impacting their brain function, the neurotransmitters. Because if your gut isn't doing well, you're not going to have serotonin and dopamine production, because again, not needed if you're running away from a tiger, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the data is so key. I don't have to convince anyone. I'm just pointing out what I'm seeing in your labs. And even if I get blood labs from a doctor, the ranges on a typical blood lab are really wide, right? They're just an average of all the people who've taken that test, and they're only designed to give someone a diagnosis, right? They're designed to diagnose a disease. Whereas in functional medicine, our lab ranges are much tighter, because we want to see if you're outside of that range, we call it dysfunction. So we're looking at disease, not dysfunction, or we're looking at dysfunction, not disease, because we want to get you back into the ideal range. So yeah, I love the numbers, because they're not going to lie. And it's from that person's specific body that's telling them this is what's happening to you.
So tell me what you think of this. So I also look at labs with individuals. Usually they're from their primary, or as you know, we do some different testing for like GI mapping or whatnot. And it's always interesting, particularly just like more traditional labs, they'll say like, oh, everything's within normal. And I always ask, but what are your symptoms? And that's a very different lens to look through, because you could be within normal, like you said, on average for the population that we've collected information from, which, by the way, the population is not healthy. So that's an interesting thing, right?
Right. You don't want to be in this average.
We could go down that rabbit hole. And I want to know, how does your body feel? Because if you're still like super low energy, if you like get hangry, if you're not sleeping at night, then I don't care if your labs are within normal, something is not right for your body that we want to tweak from a lifestyle perspective or even a supplement perspective, right? Like there's so many different things that we can do or really just get curious about. How come your body doesn't like and I'm air quoting, the normal range, essentially?
Mhm. Well, and I'll give a really specific example. I could give anyone, but I'll use the thyroid because a lot of women get TSH because they think my metabolism's tanked. Why, is it my thyroid?
Yeah.
So the typical lab range for TSH is 0 to 4.
Okay.
And that is a huge range. Most women feel good around 1.
Mm-hmm.
If they're at 2 or 3, they're already starting to feel really fatigued because thyroid helps you keep that energy level. They are just probably really sluggish. And of course, they're having the weight gain symptoms. They may have cold hands and feet. They may be losing their hair, but they're still quote unquote in normal range.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to get a thyroid hormone from the doctor. So the question then becomes, why is your thyroid not, your thyroid doesn't wake up one morning and say, I'm not feeling it today. I need a me day. Not going to produce thyroid hormone. Right. So we start to look upstream. We want to know the root cause. Why is your thyroid not functioning? Is it because you're stressed out and your body's like, well, turn off the thyroid. We don't need energy for that. Is it because you don't have enough of the building blocks for thyroid? Like we talked about earlier, selenium and iodine. Is it because you have gut issues? And so that's the gut, when it has issues, is shoving its problems off to the liver. And the liver is where 80% of the thyroid conversion happens from the inactive to the active thyroid. So like, where's the backup? Like, where's the problem? Because it's not like your thyroid just decided to take a hike, right? There's a root cause to this.
Ooh, this is why I really love functional medicine and learning more about it. And you've already taught me so much and continue to teach me. And I love how you say that the root cause of this, like our body wants to feel its best and it will attempt to do anything and everything in order to do that. And that's where it's giving you symptoms to say like, hey, I need you to pay attention to me. And which I think is like, that's the miracle of the human body. And we see it. So we're really taught to see it as our enemy versus our partner and really being like very protective of us in a very positive way, actually.
That is exactly right. And I will even take that a step further, which is that when we try to silence those symptoms by throwing on a prescription, the body is then going to do this little detour and it's trying to figure it out. Like you said, it wants to be in homeostasis. It wants to be in a position where it's handling all the things for you, but it's got to find a workaround somehow. So that's where you usually end up with other problems, other symptoms that again, are if you decide to use traditional medicine, they're just going to tamp down with another prescription. And that's how people end up with 10, 15, however many prescriptions.
Yeah. And still don't feel well. Yeah. So what made you are now an author. What made you decide to write a book on this very topic?
Well, the reason why I decided to write Your Midlife Body Code is that I personally was once one of these high achieving women I now work with, and I hit a wall. I was working ridiculous hours in corporate America. I just felt sluggish, tired, overweight, had all kinds of issues. And I didn't know what was wrong, fatigue, brain fog, restless nights, all the things. And of course I went to the doctor like so many of us do. And they either say you're normal or they give you a pill. And so I started that way. And then when I started to work with women, luckily I went through functional medicine. I figured it out. So when I started to work with women, I realized they were going through the same things. They're being told they're normal, or they're being thrown on several different medications to mask the symptoms. So once I discovered through functional medicine that there are these basics that we don't talk about, the minerals, the hormones, the gut health, the nervous system regulation, that they're all connected, I realized I have to put this in a book. I have to let as many midlife women as possible know how to understand their bodies, not fight them, because I kept hearing over and over, my body is betraying me. And I wanted them to understand your body isn't betraying you. It is trying to tell you something. And you just need a decoder. You need something to tell you, this is what your body is saying. This is what it means.
So tell us a little bit about what's inside the book then. Like for those that are like, okay, I'm curious, there's now there's information that you can have at your fingertips to be able to better understand your body to where you're not seeing it as betraying you. You're really, I mean, you can really see it as like, oh, this now makes sense, right? What are some of those things that you've shared with women inside the book?
Well, I have basically a system that I created. It's the aptly named Midlife Body Code method.
Uh-huh.
And it's really about, step one is decode, right? So you want to identify what's going on in your body. We call them the stressors. Identifying the real stressors in the body. So whether for you it's mineral loss, if it's gut dysfunction, if it's hormone imbalances, what is the thing that is causing your body to go out of whack? And from some people, it could be multiple things. But I give lots of worksheets in the book to figure out, like, what do you address first and how do you address it first? And the how is in the realign section. So we have decode, then realign. So realign is rebuilding those foundations, get the food, minerals, sleep, telling your body it's safe. Because again, that nervous system regulation is really key. Mm-hmm. And then, so decode, realign, and then reclaim. So that reclaim is when you step back into that energy, that focus, that confidence in your body without restriction or burnout. And that's the key because, again, I'm working with high achieving women who just want to do all the things all at once to the point where they're exhausted at the end of it. So it's really how to support your body instead of fighting it. Because when you do that, it will respond.
Yeah. Is there an average timeline? I know everyone's so different, but from the time someone starts working with you and has these symptoms to the time where they start feeling like, oh my gosh, I have my body back, essentially, what does that timeline look like?
So I typically work with women for about 6 months. Mm-hmm. Now, to your point, depending on how long they have been depleted and how depleted they are, it could take longer. Mm-hmm. So, I say that my typical woman is in her midlife, but I've worked with people in their 20s and 30s. I've worked with people who are in their 80s. When you have someone who's in their 80s who has had these problems for 40 years,
right,
it's going to look a lot differently than someone who's 28 who's coming to me because they just started noticing problems. That 20-year-old's body is going to bounce back a lot faster because it's usually not as depleted and They just have more cellular energy. But especially for women who are looking to lose weight, that stubborn weight, it's usually the last thing to go, mm-hmm. right? And depending on how good they are at reining in their nervous system and telling it is safe, mm-hmm. that actually probably makes the biggest difference. So if they're able to kind of regulate that and unlearn let's do all the things all the time for all the people, let's say yes to 100 different things that we need to do today. And, I'm also going to chair this thing and chair that thing and do my job and take care of all the kids. And, so some women are better at unlearning that than others. That does make a huge impact on how quickly they're able to help their bodies recover.
Yeah. And 6 months is a short amount of time, really. If you think about it, I know so many women who have struggled with their weight or with their health for decades, and to really lean in and support your body in this way for 6 months or a year or even 2 years if need be, that's actually a very short amount of time compared to living the next 10, 15, 20 years feeling like shit. I think that's a good time frame.
Well, it reminds me of when my mom told me after I got pregnant for the first time, I was trying to get my body back. And she's like, it took you 9 months to get here. It's probably going to take you 9 months to get back. So if it took you 20 years to get to the point where you're coming to me, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for us to get you not only physically back, but your mindset. That's the key point of it.
So true. Well, what do you hope the listeners really take away from this?
Well, I would say first off that I want to undo some of the mental programming. So you're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not going crazy. This is not in your head. Your body is trying to get your attention. And when you support your body instead of fighting it, it will always respond. Because this point of life that we all kind of groan about, it can actually be a time of power, right? Because like I said, we are taking our power back. We are realizing we need to take care of ourselves. It's not all about everybody else now. So you can use this time to become empowered. It's not necessarily decline. It's a time for you to take back your power.
Yeah, and maybe put yourself on your own priority list.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We are going to share the link to your book so that individuals can take a look at it and order it for themselves. It sounds like I know that there's a lot of information in there that's going to be so healing for women. And I love that you have the message of you're not lazy, you're not crazy. It's not that you're not motivated, because those are all just symptoms as well. And when we really get to the root cause, you can feel so much better. So I'm so thankful that you're sharing that with women everywhere.
Thank you so much. It's a labor of love. I just want more women to have this information so they feel empowered. They feel they have a way to support their bodies, because I think it's very frustrating for a lot of women that they're here and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. And then where can they reach out to you directly as well?
They can either find me through the book website that you're about to share. If they want to, if they don't even know where to start and they're like, I don't know if I'm ready for a book, they can always take my Midlife Body Code quiz that I believe you have the link to. And that'll really show them what phase they're in. Are they in the Decode? Are they in the Reclaim or Realign? And then if they are on Instagram, it's at claudine.r.francois.
Okay, we'll link all of that information so you can go follow her on Instagram. You can take the quiz and you can also check out the book. So thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. It's good seeing you.
You too.